you are on assignment.
We'll keep increasing sanctions.
I like people coming early.
Now, a behind-the-scenes look. Hi, I'm Alex Villarreal, here with Imran Siddiqui, and this is On Assignment.
First up, we'll go to Cairo for a look at how VOA reporters covered Egypt's vote for the new president.
Shedding some light on the disappearance of Amelia Earhart, we'll tell you about the latest discoveries.
The life cycle of a plastic bottle. You'll see it go from the store shelf to a recycling plant and then back again.
And what's holding up polio vaccination efforts in Pakistan? We'll find out from our reporter, Brian Padden.
These are the stories, so let's go behind them as we take you on assignment. Egyptians went to the poll last weekend to vote between two very different candidates. Islamist Mohammed Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood and establishment candidate Ahmed Shafiq, Hosni Mubarak's last prime minister.
The Muslim Brotherhood quickly claimed the unofficial victory for Morsi, but just as the runoff was ending, Egypt's ruling generals declared a controversial new interim constitution, giving them sweeping power over the new president.
Egyptians had a lot to say about this election, and VOA has been collecting photos, videos, and texts that tell their stories during the 2 days of voting. VOA has covered this story top to bottom, and Davin Hutchins of our MiddleEastVoices.com website went to Cairo, and we caught up with him via Skype. Let's check that.
I think the press has referred to it as a silent coup or so forth. I think I tweeted that's what it felt like. I think the basics are this.
Give us your impression of the social and political mood in Cairo right now.
Well, you know, Tahrir Square, and I'm only a few blocks from it right now, is sort of the heartbeat of the entire nation. And what is funny when I've been here reporting is every day it's a different vibe. So the first day
religion is not a special relation between you and the God in the mosque or in the no. In all levels, the political, and the social, and the personal, the religion must regulate all these things.
I'm supporting Dr. Mohammed Morsi. Because I see that he will implement what's in my head.
The first day I was here was pretty quiet, and that was on the eve of the Supreme Constitutional Court's decision to dissolve the entire parliament. So the day after they made that decision, it was filled with very angry people who feel they had been cheated.
We had this good revolution that ended up with the military rule, and even the choice that they put you between the military tyrants and the tyrants of the religious extremists. This is not the position of Egypt. This is not the Tahrir, the utopia that we lived in for 18 days and after. They are trying to ruin everything.
Okay, we asked for a change. We don't ask for a change of persons. We ask for a change of the system or the regime. We ask for a change of the regime. Now we find the regime as it is. The revolution didn't change anything. If you ask any man in the street,
and then we went to the election. It was sort of quiet. People felt that they were resigned to whatever was going to happen. Now people are celebrating because Mohammed Morsi, the Muslim Brotherhood candidate, is ahead in the polls, and a lot of people support him. So the mood changes from day to day because the events are literally changing from day to day, and I imagine they'll continue to do so.
What has been the approach of Middle East Voices team in terms of covering the election?
What we did is we had two teams on the ground. Cairo correspondent Elizabeth Arrett was here with her videographer, Japhet Weeks, and they were covering things for our general news.
One group that's gaining momentum is urging voters to spoil their ballots.
These nullified votes would tell the two candidates that there is a third power.
But it's far from clear if those currently in power will pay heed to protests, silent or otherwise. Elizabeth Arrett, VOA News, Cairo.
We had a second team, which were two stringers working with me, and we were basically focusing on tweeting getting sentiment, images on Instagram up as quickly as we can, and at the same time telling people to partake with us by using a special hashtag called Egypt Decides. Then we had a third team that were actually looking through all of these tweets and photos that were coming through, both from Egypt Decides and generally in Egypt, and creating what we call social streams, which are these storify stories of what happens each day. And we've been doing this for about 4 or 5 days now.
She said Morsi would be the president of Egypt, God willing.
Morsi would be the president of Egypt, what?
God willing.
We have a video here. This was taken and sent digitally by Davin Hutchins. Followed a march Friday evening to Tahrir Square.
So we really tried to take a different approach to having complementary social media reporting to the traditional reporting.
What's your take on the SCAF and the SC? I mean, can we say the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces basically threw a coup?
I think the press has referred to it as a silent coup or so forth. I think the basics are this. After of about 3 or 4 days, when people were excited about the election, SCAF has introduced new laws that will allow the Army to do things that the police used to do, sort of reminiscent of Mubarak's old emergency laws, which everyone hated. They've assumed all legislative and budgetary powers for themselves, and they're going to write the new constitution, in effect, by selecting a constituent assembly and appointing the members on that. Now, depending on what that constitution says, will determine what the new president, presumably Morsi, though it could be Shafiq, is going to have the power to do.
How's been the reaction of the young revolutionaries in terms of having to choose from between an Islamist and a former Mubarak ally?
Well, I was talking with Ashraf Khalil, who wrote the book Liberation Square. He's a journalist based here, and was asking him, because he knows a lot of revolutionaries.
Honestly, it does feel like the mood of the country is this letdown, disappointment, possibly disappointment in their fellow Egyptians, possibly disappointment in each other, disappointment in their friends, disappointment in themselves.
You'll find lots more of our coverage from Egypt online at voanews.com and at middleeastvoices.com.
All right, well, it's time for a break, but when we come back, we'll talk with our reporter about the latest analysis in the disappearance of aviation legend Amelia Earhart. You're watching On Assignment. 75 years after the disappearance of American aviator Amelia Earhart, explorers say they're getting closer to solving the mystery of what happened to her. She and her navigator vanished over the Pacific in 1937 while attempting to circle the world in her twin-engine airplane. VOA's Jeff Swicord has been looking at this story for us. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you very much.
You talked to this particular group of researchers that's been looking for clues in this case. Who are they, and what is their theory about what happened to Earhart?
Well, Tiger is basically a bunch of history buffs, a bunch of aviation history buffs with a penchant for excitement, who go around the world, and they, a lot of it is underwater. They look for military aircraft, trying to find out what happened to them. A lot of it's war-related. The Amelia Earhart thing, of course, was a different case. They really weren't interested in the Amelia Earhart story to start with, but they thought that it would be easy to solve. They've been at it for 24 years now.
Well, Jeff, let's go ahead and take a look at your story for more, and then we'll come back to you.
Amelia Earhart was a pioneering American aviator in the early 20th century. The first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean, she became a national celebrity. In July of 1937, she and navigator Fred Noonan disappeared over the Pacific while attempting to fly around the world. To this date, their fate is shrouded in mystery. 75 years later, the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery works to solve the mystery. Rick Gillespie is executive director of Tiger.
The romantic attraction of the Earhart mystery. She was the celebrity that inspired people when she was alive. And then she disappeared in such a mysterious way.
Earhart disappeared while flying from Lae, Papua New Guinea to Howland Island, 3,100 kilometers southwest of Hawaii. Tiger researchers believe she ran low on fuel and veered off course to the small uninhabited island of Nikamororo, which was never thoroughly searched during the initial 1937 investigation. Again, Rick Gillespie.
We said, whoa, nobody ever looked for Amelia Earhart in the most likely place? And they said, well, that's the way it looks to us.
Tiger members have uncovered artifacts from what they call Site 7 on the tiny South Pacific atoll.
A number of them came from 2007. Some of them came from 2010.
Tiger staff member Joe Cerniglia shows some of the artifacts. A jar that might have been a woman's facial cream, a beer bottle, a lanolin bottle, all believed to be from the late 1930s.
We have a chemical match from 2 labs that show that residue from this bottle, which was recovered from Nikamororo, matches residue from bottles such as this one that were recovered from eBay.
They have also recovered pieces of an aircraft. As Rick Gillespie points out, Tiger has found a lot of intriguing artifacts, but the undeniable evidence that Earhart ended up in Nikamororo eludes them.
This is very much like a jigsaw puzzle. And we've got the edges, we've got most of the picture in the interior. What we don't have are those final pictures that make it absolutely beyond a doubt to anyone who looks at it that this is the answer to this riddle.
Tiger will return to Nikamororo for its 10th expedition in July. With sophisticated underwater equipment, they plan to search the seafloor, looking for the wreckage of Earhart's plane. And finally, perhaps, solve the mystery of her disappearance. Jeff Swicord, VOA News, Washington.
So they believe actually that it's possible that she survived this?
Yes.
And that she lived there for a time?
They have found some artifacts on the island that might suggest that she had taken some things out of the plane. They don't know that they're hers, but they have sort of theorized that there were some items in there that she might have had, let's just say.
All right, well, thank you, Jeff, for those insights. Really appreciate that. It's new information for us on a very old story. It's time now for another break. We'll be right back with a look at the journey of a typical recycled plastic bottle. You're watching On Assignment. Every year, the global production of plastic is in the hundreds of millions of tons. Some of that plastic is made into bottles that are recycled, and as we found out, those bottles spend their whole lives on the move.
Arash Arabasadi of VOA's Persian News Network decided to follow some of these bottles on their trip from store shelf to the recycling plant and then back again. We talked with Arash about what he saw. Let's take a look at that.
In my own life, I try to recycle everything as much as I can, so I was dying to know what happens when I take a drink bottle and I throw it in the recycling bin. I took a lot of phone calls, but I was able to actually follow a bottle around as it went through its life cycle and was broken down and built anew.
This is where the whole bottles enter the whole bottle wash. It's just like your front-end load washing machine at your house. It's just a lot longer and a lot bigger.
Hot water washes the labels off of drink bottles and shakes out loose debris.
It's kind of like your flour sifter at home when you're sifting out the big chunks of flour.
Except these are big chunks of shredded plastic, hundreds of thousands of kilograms of them. Industry insiders call them PET flake, and it's this product that another facility will buy, melt, and mold into something else.
For me, the whole adventure was really, where does something actually happen to it? So I followed it from a truck to a facility in Maryland where they sorted it out. There was a machine, it could tell if there was metal, it could tell if it was plastic, and everything automatically went into separate areas. And those areas are all baled into these giant cubes, and they're sold to these companies all around the United States and all around the world, really. Some of them actually go overseas, where they take this next generation of waste and break it down, and sell the broken down core elements, stone plastic, an example, these little pellets of plastic. And they sell those little pellets of plastic to countries and companies all over the planet that make whatever they want out of them. They make book bags, they make bottles again, they make anything, your belt, your shoes, anything that has plastic, you have no idea where that plastic came from. And so it's so cool to see that this drink bottle that I bought in Washington, D.C. literally travels the globe to become new products.
So if I have a plastic bottle, I have no idea what's going to happen to it in a couple of years.
No clue. You have no idea what's going to happen to it in a month.
It might come back as my steering wheel.
It might come back as your anything. Yes, it might come back as your steering wheel. It might come back as your shirt. If your shirt has any polyester in it, that's plastic. That's where that comes from.
One word. Yes, sir. Are you listening? Yes, I am. Plastics. Exactly, how do you mean? There's a great future in plastics.
How much of a demand do you think there is for that?
Well, again, as recycling has grown and it's become an industry, it's been it's a beneficial thing to cut down on landfill waste. And of course there's a demand because it's cheaper than making virgin plastic as opposed to shredding down something you already have and melting it and making something new.
And what do you think about this industry being introduced in the developing world? Because there might be people out there watching us and saying that, hey, you know, we're talking about getting food, you're talking about recycling.
Again, it's an industry. So not only is it, well, this bottle is just going to go somewhere. No, somebody has to drive that bottle somewhere. And once it gets somewhere, then other people have to work on breaking it down, selling it to another person. So you're creating work where there is no work. So is it the #1 concern of a developing country? Probably not. However, it's a great way for a lot of people to get jobs, and in the meantime, you're helping your own country because you're not just throwing waste that could otherwise be generating money for your people and for your country. You're not just throwing it into a landfill.
What was the most interesting thing about that particular plant that you went to in Maryland?
The most interesting thing, again, was the machinery. It's so high-tech that there's this belt that is just flying by, and waste is just shooting all over the place. Looks like it's totally haphazard. But in the meantime, paper knows where it's going. Metal knows where there's a magnet catching the metal. The plastic is heavy, so it falls. So everything's really designed in a way that is totally automated. So even if there's a snowstorm, we talked about a blizzard that happened a year or two ago. When they shut down, the facility can still theoretically run by itself. It doesn't for safety reasons, but it could. So that was the one in Maryland, and again, they shipped this stuff to North Carolina, where these factories are so huge. It's unbelievable the amount of waste that comes in there on a daily and on a weekly basis. And to think that that could go into the ocean or into a landfill, but instead it comes back, it was a nice thing to see.
That was Arash Arabasadi of VOA's Persian News Network. Great video. Health experts say the global campaign to eradicate polio has reached a critical stage, with Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Nigeria the only countries where the crippling virus is still prevalent.
VOA's Brian Padden has been tracking this story for us, and he says sometimes polio vaccination efforts are most needed in places where they are least wanted. He explained this when we spoke. Let's check that out. We know that most of the world is now polio-free, but why is it that these 3 countries that you talked about, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nigeria, why are they still struggling with this disease?
Well, when I first got interested in the story, I talked to an official who's been working for years in polio eradication, and I was told that the people who hate us the most are the people we still need to reach. And what she meant by that was that in Islamic regions or some Islamic areas, very conservative areas, there is a very strong anti-American sentiment pervasive there, which is hampering the polio vaccination effort there.
Health officials in Pakistan say they are redoubling efforts to vaccinate every child against polio after 198 new cases were reported in the country last year, the largest number anywhere in the world. But an ongoing insurgency and the influx of millions of Pakistani and Afghan refugees make that difficult. And there's public opposition tied to reports the CIA used a fake vaccination program to hunt down al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden.
And it came out afterwards that they employed a doctor to try to get information on what was going on in the house where Osama bin Laden was, posing as a vaccination official.
A lot of this opposition to these vaccines, this mass vaccination campaign is what a lot of the health experts you talk to say is needed, but why is it there are so many people against it?
There's various pockets of opposition for different reasons.
In northern Nigeria, public health officials have worked hard to counter false rumors that the polio vaccine contains birth control drugs meant to suppress the country's Muslim population. Even in the United States, there are anti-immunization groups that claim the vaccines can be unsafe for some people. Other critics, such as Barbara Loe Fisher, president of the National Vaccine Information Center, believe vaccine makers are promoting mass immunization solely to increase their profits.
Certainly, we have very powerful pharmaceutical corporations, multinational drug companies, who are very interested in having as many doses of vaccines as possible used by as many children all over the world as possible.
Many of the people in the U.S. and in Western countries who have concerns about vaccination programs have had children who've had adverse effects to vaccinations, and there are a percentage of children who have adverse effects to the polio vaccine and other vaccines.
What is it that health experts say is needed to tackle this?
Persistence.
Carol Pandak manages the polio eradication program for the private group Rotary International.
We could stop polio, but we need are the financial resources to finish the job and the accountability and advocacy on the political side in the remaining polio endemic countries so that the activities are carried out at a quality that can stop the transmission of the virus.
The other issue, I'm told, that is preventing and hampering vaccination efforts, particularly in the developing world, is the fact that there's logistical issues, that there's wars going on, that there's the volunteer groups are not properly trained. So there are efforts and money being focused to try to improve the infrastructure for delivering the vaccine to these pockets of areas that are still
There's also
not
difficulty
covered.
with tracking, right? With making sure that everyone in a particular region is vaccinated.
Especially in areas like in Pakistan, where you have a lot of movement of people. They're leaving, they're coming from the tribal areas in Afghanistan and Pakistan because of the fighting and coming into Islamabad or safer areas. And it makes it harder to know who's been vaccinated, who hasn't been vaccinated.
Now, this idea of a polio-free world, is this something that we're going to see?
We're down to 3 countries where polio is prevalent. Now, that doesn't mean once polio is no longer prevalent in these 3 countries, that polio will be gone from the world forever, because there is still wild polio. Polio occurs in nature. What we would do when we found out there was some wild polio outbreak somewhere, you go into that area and then you saturate that area with vaccinations and medication, and then so as you can protect it from the rest of the world, and so you keep it isolated.
Right. So that's our show for today. Imran and I will be back next week when we'll go to Cambodia for a look at some desperate and dangerous gold mining practices.
And you can find all of our episodes at the Programs tab at voanews.com and also on Facebook and YouTube. From all of us at On Assignment, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.
See you next time.